Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hanging Out at the Hive with Mary Wong. We are so excited because we, of course, have an awesome show for you planned today. And as you know, during each episode, Mary invites one of the members of her hive to come on and share some of their expertise on a specific topic. And today we have Vicki Pugh as a guest, a good friend of Mary's for quite some time. She is the VP of Business of Development for Palm Beach Atlantic University, and she is going to talk about nonprofit fundraising. And I'm kind of excited because we got a lot of response when we put that topic out there, because there's a lot of nonprofits that really they just need help fundraising. There's so many people doing such great work and they need help to raise the money to do it. So Vicki, thank you so much for joining us. And Mary, want to share a little bit about how you and Vicki connected?
Well, I've known Vicki for, I kind of always have stood back in awe because Vicki is, quite frankly, and then I just learned about this, what you did. I didn't know that you were at Palm Beach State, so congratulations. But the whole AFP piece that you do, fundraising is a very hard topic, number one, to talk about. It's a number two, look, I'm in this industry. It's not easy to do. And then number two, it's also very hard to get people to understand the importance of it and how do you do it effectively and efficiently. And how do you also know when to say, I shouldn't do it. It's, those things of when you should turn a program off or on. But I watched you at the Y for all those years, and you did great programming there that was always terrific for everything. And I saw you develop that entity into, I believe, what it is today. It wouldn't be what it is today sometimes, Vicki, and it wouldn't stay the way it was for that groundwork you set into place. So my hat's off to you for that. The other piece is that our foundation and what we've always stood by is that we've always wanted to be, and it was a hard lesson for me to learn, was to teach nonprofits and, quite frankly, some of the small businesses that we work with how to fish versus fishing for them. And that really came about when the economy tanked, and it was like, pretty much all man for himself, and not being able to just give out as much money as you wanted, just working all the time at being a perpetual check versus what is your business plan to be able to sustain yourself on a regular basis, and how do you go out and do this. And I think there's more innovative ways than just always doing fundraising or big gala events and that type of thing. So I think that's where AFP has really been very instrumental in being able to teach lessons. And I saw the Facebook page that came out at Palm Beach State on how you get some accreditations if you want to become more professional in that area of fundraising. So I'd love to hear from you, the pro.
Well, Mary, as you say, we've been friends for a long time. I think we have a mutual admiration society because I love the way that you're so passionate about the community. You're one of those foundation donors that doesn't just give the money away. You get involved in the organizations, what you support. You want to know about them. You want to know their progress. So thank you for how you've helped so many agencies in our community build up their base of support so that they can help provide very essential needs that others can't. I'll talk a little bit about AFP because I encourage everyone to get involved in some way, and a lot of people think you have to be a member to attend and get benefit from it, but you don't. Any non-member can attend any of our events. There's a differential in the fee, but it's not much, because every month we put on a luncheon and we have an educational topic it's germane to every level of fundraising person, whether you're new in the industry or whether you're seasoned. We try to bring in speakers that really talk relevantly to what's going on in fundraising, what some of the best practices are, what kinds of things you can do as a development professional, and maybe exploring new ways to raise money. Mary, you said something so important, and that's how you're a foundation that supports organizations by giving money, but how do you help them learn to raise money? Raising money is not easy, as you say. It's all about relationship development, and it's not about just targeting people or businesses or foundations in the community that can give money. It's building relationships with them, finding out the kinds of things that they want to support and they're passionate about, and then help to lead them. It's a matchmaking process. Another thing I think that a lot of people think that most money comes from corporations and foundations. Well, it doesn't. 85% of all money given in this country is by individuals. So, you know, when you're looking at where, if you're a person working on your own as a fundraiser in the organization, you have to determine how much time you spend on fundraising. Individuals is where you want to be really spending the most of your time. As you say, not throwing gala events, those are so time consuming. It's really focusing on those, developing those relationships with the individual donors and getting them to find some passions and some passionate intersections with what your organization is doing.
Oh my gosh, I love that you just said that about the galas, because I feel like everyone wants to put on these huge, elaborate, amazing events, and they are so expensive. And you have to find the sponsors to do just that. And I know on my side, Vicki, I would love to hear your thoughts on a lot of questions I get from nonprofits is through the marketing side. They want to know like the quick fix of how do I use social media? Should I do crowdfunding, or what's the easiest way? And I always tell them what you just said, which is you have to really, I mean, it's making those calls, it's making those connections and building those relationships so that that person has a connection with your nonprofit. But what's a good way to do that? Because there are so many people out there. How do these nonprofits find the right people that aren't the ones that are getting tapped all the time to start to build those relationships? Where should they start? How do you create that kind of target list?
Well, most organizations, unless they're starting from scratch, you already have a donor base. So your best donors are your existing donors. And if you're the only fundraiser in your organization, it's key and critical to try to develop your donors into bigger donors. That doesn't mean you can't focus on new sources of support, but your existing donors should already be tied in. And usually when you have donors that support you, you can interest them in new things and new ways to give. So that's my first piece of advice. Don't overlook the people that are already in your network and already giving, because they are the people that you can form stronger relationships that over time can definitely turn into increased contributed support. I'll say a word about events, Kate, because you mentioned it, and how you are trying to mentor others who are really in the thick of events. When I was working for the YMCA, we found ourselves in that position where we were running ourselves ragged putting special events on. And so we took a step back and we really assessed both the indirect and direct costs of each of our events. And then we kind of honed in on those events that we really thought did fundraised for us, as well as help us develop new relationships. If you use events in that way, they can be a great cultivator of new interest in your organization. And so many times in my career, I've gone to or put on luncheons or galas, and we just haven't spent the time cultivating the donors, the potential donors that have come to those events. So putting a plan in place, not just to have a special event, hopefully they raise money, but they also can be a good source of new prospective donors to your organization.
All right, cool, interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there, when you're talking to some of these, do people use their boards and the people within their nonprofits as for fundraising, or is it better to have like a sole person that's really the one running it, managing it, the one that really needs to make the ask?
It really needs to be a volunteer staff partnership. No fundraiser can raise money on his or her own effectively. I guess I should qualify. I'm sure there are some people that can just go out there and do it on their own, but you really need to have a partnership with your volunteer leadership, certainly at the board level. And what I find is not a lot of board members are super comfortable asking for money, but many are comfortable making introductions. And if you can form a partnership with your key leadership, have them reach out, introduce their friends to what you do, but let them know that you don't have to ask for the money. That's the fundraising person's job to do. That usually can create a very nice synergy of bringing new folks into the organization, bringing them along, building the relationships, and eventually getting them as donors.
All right, cool. Yeah.
So can I pop in on this one? So having had as much experience as you've had in the nonprofit world, Vicki, and then doing what you do at Palm Beach State and also for American the fundraising piece, boards is a difficult subject, because I think that even as clearly, and I think you know me, as clearly as we outline and what their roles are and the importance of their role, our target market is to really assist that startup to mid-sized nonprofit. That having a board, although it might not be big, many times they have very influential people on that board, sure, and that they can help. But your point is such a great point, that they're not comfortable asking for the cash. The reality of the situation is if they don't ask for the money, they won't be in existence in 3 years from now. Right. And so you had a gentleman, and God forgive me for not remembering, but he was amazing, that came to that luncheon that day. I bought 25 of his books that day, and he spoke about fundraising, and he gave tip after tip after tip for how to engage your board. That was really easy to do. But what it really came back to, if I may be blunt, was to come back to the director of the organization to be brave enough to stand up to the board and say, I'm not asking you, this is your responsibility to do it, because I can't do this by myself. You can't expect me to do development, to be the face, and to do all of these things, and then do all the fundraising and do all of that and be responsible for that outcome too. This is really a team effort, and you have to come in and set a goal. And everybody can do that differently, and I think once they do one of them and they get a win on that, it's a lot easier, because they're very proud after they've done it once. If you have different tips, that would be great.
Well, you make a great point, Mary, in that so often I've been involved in situations where you recruit board members because they're well-intentioned people, they're connected in the community, but you don't talk about some of those expectations before they join the board. And then once you get into those hard discussions where you're talking to the board about raising funds and giving funds, they're surprised. So one of my tips that I talk, and I've talked to many groups about this, is to develop expectations of your board members so that when they say, yes, I want to be a board member, nothing surprises them. When you or the executive director stands up at a meeting and says, we have a campaign, we need to raise this amount of money, we want each of you to participate, you've already agreed to do that before you join the board, and you agreed to participate in the fundraising in some way. That makes those discussions go easier, and I've had much more success with volunteer boards who know those expectations up front before they say, yes, I want to be a board member. And another thing I can talk about is the way that you can engage your board members and your volunteers in development. And that might not be asking for money, that might not be in introducing people to the development person for the money ask. Board members can write thank you notes. Board members can make thank you calls to donors. And sometimes I've seen board members do those kinds of things and they get so excited about it, it's not as difficult for them anymore to make some introductions to some folks in their network who want to get involved in the organization and may become future donors.
That's a great point. I think sometimes we always think that we need to do that, and that needs to come from us as the head of it, or that's a great point to tell, to divvy up some of those responsibilities and to get that. And I think one of the other things that we learned too is when you have an event and asking from the stage and asking from and letting people, because once they've experienced what you do and how, just to remind them, they're all in the moment. There's nothing wrong with asking for a donation.
No,
There's
no,
nothing wrong with that.
you know, that's another. If I can give another piece of advice, it's be bold, because if you're not bold, others will be. You gotta ask, and you gotta ask often.
Yeah, I think Vicki, that Kate's over there going, "Yep, that would be us."
Yeah, no, it's funny. I have a girlfriend of mine who she came back from an event, and it was specifically a fundraising event, and she actually said, I had the check in my, she's like, I had my checkbook in my purse, and I just was waiting for anyone there to make the ask of me. And she said, I did it on purpose, because and she obviously does fundraising, and she's like, I did it on purpose to like kind of prove a point. And then she said, and I'm going to call my friend, it's her friend. She goes, I'm going to call my friend and tell her very specifically. I was there for a fundraising event, obviously with the purpose of giving funds, and I was ready, prepared to do it, and not one person in that room, including the woman who was there to raise the money, asked her for it. And so that was hopefully a good lesson for that person, because you know, it's that thing that you have to ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. And so it just sounds like such easy advice, but it's a lot of us just don't do that in that situation. It's that it goes back to Mary, it goes back to our conversation with Jackie, the money conversation. It's that conversation that we all just get too scared to have. Yeah, it's crazy. But you know, Vicki, we do have a couple of people that are watching live, and I apologize, I've been trying to get this Q&A to work, but if you're watching live and you do want to ask a question, please head on over to the Facebook group, and so that you can ask your question on Facebook, and then I'll just monitor them. So if you're on and you're watching and you're like, this is great, but I have a question and I can't ask it, go ahead and ask it over on Facebook, and we can ask Vicki. And of course, we're recording this and are happy to answer questions afterwards as well. So I just don't want anyone to feel frustrated if they do have a question. You can ask over on Facebook.
So I have a question. So could you just go into a little bit? I was so impressed with, you know, what you're teaching at Palm Beach State. So could you just talk just a little bit about some of the criteria that you're going through on that, and how that assists a foundation director or a nonprofit director, and what would they get with that?
Well, I'm at Palm Beach Atlantic University.
I mean,
I'm not at Palm Beach State.
I apologize.
And really, PBA has been an anchor in the West Palm Beach community for almost 50 years now, but it's really been the last 10, 20 years that it's come into its own and really grown exponentially during that time. And a lot of people think of Palm Beach Atlantic University as its former self, which was really a more like a Bible college. We're a faith-based institution. We taught a lot of preachers and teachers at one point, but now we've expanded our programming. We have over 50 areas of study. Some of our more popular degree programs are nursing, pre-health, biology, chemistry majors. We have 2 professional schools. We have a school of pharmacy and a school of nursing. We have a school of ministry, communications, and our business school is just exploding with new programs that are meeting this enormous demand of our urban environment. You know, West Palm Beach now has a financial district, and business is burgeoning, and we are just feeding lots of students into the business community to take those jobs. So Palm Beach Atlantic is really becoming a beacon of education, anchoring this West Palm Beach corridor. We have a School of Leadership, and through the School of Leadership, we are looking at some programming to serve the nonprofit community. In fact, we now have a Master's in Leadership that has a nonprofit track. So someone who's interested in getting a master's degree who likes that leadership component can then take some elective courses in nonprofit management, fundraising, and marketing.
Yeah, I think for those of you out there, when I saw the things, I don't think that that's such a bad idea, especially now, because the more that I speak, and Kate's been with me, running a nonprofit is very much like running a business. It's very much like, I mean, very much of, you know, you have a heart, you have all of those things, but what you're really selling and what you're really talking to those people about and marketing is your heart and what you are doing. But I will tell you that and Kate has been with me now for almost a year, and I think she was a little blown away with how tactical everything is. It's very much what's the metrics around it, how much did we help, how much did, where you can measure the ROI and how we can make that impact. We really try to lead off with that so that people can see the dollars are for the value, because it's a lot different. I don't know, Vicki, do you see that now? That how
Oh, yeah.
people gave their donations 10 years ago, they gave you the donation. Now they give you any money, and it's viewed a lot differently.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with the generational shift. Boomers and the generation before that were a little more trusting of our local nonprofit organizations. They gave the gift, they trusted that you would use it to where they placed it, where they wanted it to go, and you didn't have to do a lot of reporting, but that's changing, and that will change dramatically as the millennials age and become our primary source of donors, because we know a couple things. We've been doing some surveying of our young alumni with the help of an organization called Achieve. And they have, and these, they are telling us this was what we're going to find, and we have found this to be true. Millennials want to know where their support is. They want to see how their support is affecting others. They don't want to just give and walk away. They like to see the facts and figures. They like to see how many people they're helping, what the improvement is, what your benchmarks are, and how you're meeting them. But they also want that social side of giving, where they're seeing firsthand with their own eyes the benefits that organizations or that their contributions have on organizations. So, Mary, I think your point is very important. And I found when reporting to donors on how their impact is, there are two things that they love. They like data, but they don't just only like data. And for so long, we've been telling donors, you've impacted this many people, and this percentage increased. We've been using data to show results, but we forget about that human side and why we do what we do. People love stories. I love telling stories of students who would never, ever have the opportunity to come to Palm Beach Atlantic University. They'd never have the opportunity to get a college education, yet some donor, some passionate donor set up an endowment fund years ago that now helps fund that student's tuition. And they write letters, the students do, they give testimonies of how they could only be here because of that donor, and then we watch them grow up, we watch them get great jobs, we watch them raise families, and it's just those are the stories that really hit to the heart of our donors. And as I said, as our millennials grow up and become the next generation of major gift providers and endowment providers, they're going to want to know more of those stories. They're going to see those stories in action.
Do you, so that brings up a great point too, is like, it's funny because I was just, this whole thing hit us with Louisiana and the disaster piece. So how has GoFundMe and that whole piece affected, online, I guess it'd be online or social media funding affected that?
Well, we are excited about the new tools and opportunities that technology will give us as fundraisers. And every fundraiser is hungry to know what the new thing is. What's the new GoFundMe? How can I do some campaigning online? How can I use tools like we're using today really to raise funds? It's the next wave of fundraising. In the world I live in the world I fundraise in, we're early in that process. We have a robust site for online giving, but we don't have nearly the participation in online giving that we do. People who just give, send checks, do credit cards, those kind of things. But it's the wave of the future of fundraising. It is easier, certainly, than asking someone face-to-face for a contribution. And typically, online gifts are much smaller. than gifts that you get when you build a relationship and you move someone, sort of we call it through the moves management process of development, where you're really building that relationship and doing some matchmaking with programs and projects that they're passionate about. So, you know, you can't expect to raise big money. It's almost like an event. I don't think you can expect to raise enormous money with some of these online tools, but it gives you an introduction to many, many new donors. The university for the last 2 years has participated in a Day of Giving. We do it on the National Day of Giving, and we do our own campaign. And we've gotten many, many new donors who never have given ever to the university, mainly through our alumni association, but they've never made a gift. But they were encouraged through this Day of Giving to give, and we do all kinds of great incentives during the day to give, and we do little contests and awards and those kind of things. But less important than the money we raise through that is the fact that we've got a lot of new donors, and now it gives us an opportunity to start developing those donors into long-standing donors, and hopefully along the line, as we get to know them more and they get to know us more, they will be giving more substantial gifts.
I think that what I see though too is that the GoFundMe pages make it easy for people to feel instantaneously like they've given, they've done their part, and then they can go on to something new and it's exciting for them.
So are you saying that you think that kind of giving is short term?
No, I think that it answers the question to a lot of millennials that don't necessarily want to be a part of something. They're not going to stick around in an organization like you and I did. I've been here 25 years. They want something, you know, it's not that, you know, but they want to see immediate action. They want something done immediately. So, for instance, today in Louisiana, there's a lot, as you know, a lot of animals that were left and hurt. And so a lot of these shelters, they put up GoFundMe pages with, you know, realistic amounts that they needed to raise. And 7 of them put up those, and within 24 hours, they got all their dollars.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, in our day and age, Vic, we'd have to work.
Oh yeah.
Years before we get $50,000 for a building.
Yeah.
I mean, they got it in 24 hours. That's amazing.
Yeah. I think there's a big difference in that kind of GoFundMe and some of these crowdsourcing versus nonprofits trying to do it, because I think for a nonprofit, I think they hear those crowdsourcing and GoFundMe pages and they think they have this new audience, when really most of the people that are going to those pages are their existing audience already. So it's better to, I would feel like it would be better to drive them to your homepage or your own kind of landing page rather than go through that third party. For something like you just talked about, Mary, that makes sense. Like, people are like ready to give immediately. It's a need that they have right now. But I find that a lot of nonprofits, they're looking for a lot of different tools and things to make it easier, when I think a lot of it really is more around identifying and building those relationships. It's not necessarily like the platform of a GoFundMe page that's going to do it for you, because a lot of these websites already have the funding page, the give now online credit card type thing. So I think it doesn't make it easier. It doesn't necessarily give you this audience, but I think a lot of us read, oh, GoFundMe, and somebody threw something out there and raised $100,000, but it does take a lot of time and strategy behind it. It's a lot of marketing and push, and like you talked about too, Vicki, the story. How do you create and craft a story that gets somebody compelled to give immediately and give those bigger dollars?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Kate. You know, if there's an emergency situation and there's an urgent need for fundraising, I think some of those, that GoFundMe and those other kinds of platforms like that, can be very effective in getting the money that's needed in a quick fashion. What we're learning and what we're experimenting with in development, and many organizations are being successful, is using every tool that you have in a campaign. So rather than the old-fashioned way where you send in your direct mail out, you know, every so many weeks, you're using lots of things, lots of tools, because everybody's responding differently. So In our annual fund campaign at Palm Beach Atlantic this next year, we're going to do some traditional mail outs, but we're also supporting that with YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. We're pushing it out on social media. We're doing some emails. We're doing some text messaging with links that can take you right to the giving page. So the messaging is going out through many, many different channels rather than just that one strategy that we used to do for our campaigns, or for, you might have an annual campaign going on at the same time that you have an alumni scholarship campaign. So you're just really targeting small groups with one message. Well, we're now looking at more global campaigning and using all these terrific online resources that we have to back them up so that hopefully the message penetrates deeper and more, we'll have more response.
Cool. I would love to get your thoughts on just kind of going back to the millennials and that whole different way of thinking and social good components of companies and being able to kind of partner with those bigger companies that would take you on, or the nonprofit on, as a partner to be able to raise some money, like, those more corporations that are looking to partner with people and not necessarily have their own nonprofit, or maybe more of like, I know a lot of companies now are looking to partner with different nonprofits every month, and they donate a portion of the proceeds during that month to a specific nonprofit. So how do you see some nonprofits being able to identify some of those bigger companies that it might be a good fit for them?
Well, I think it depends on who's in your community. I've lived and worked when I raised money in communities where you just don't have a big corporate involvement or a big corporate presence. So, I think that can be geographically challenging for some organizations. But, it really goes back, Kate, it's fundamental. It's developing relationships. If we've got many, many generous corporate partners in our community, and they support nonprofit organizations with volunteers from the leadership levels to the actual doers that are going out in the community helping these organizations implement their programs, to giving money, to giving matching gifts to their employees. So there's so many different ways that corporations can help our nonprofit partners. But it's developing those relationships and making sure your partnership works for whatever you're trying to do, and making sure that the corporate partner is in with you. What I guess I try to share with my staff when we're looking at corporate partners is not to try to eat the elephant. If you're going to establish a partnership with 4 or 5 businesses and really get to know them and know what they like to support and how they can support, and again, over time building that relationship, you can make some wonderful, wonderful things happen. So I guess my advice is to develop those relationships with a few corporations. Make sure you're not spending all your time working on that, because that can be time consuming when you're managing a lot of volunteers and a lot of partnerships and a lot of fulfillment of sponsorship type promises. So maybe start small, don't eat the elephant, work on partnerships with a small group of people, but really try to create some meaningful partnerships that will last.
Vicki, why can't there just be like an easy, everyone's like, what's the way? Like, what's the one just easy way to get like a big check for like $1 million?
There's no easy way.
We all want to know that, and if there was one easy way, everybody would be doing it that one way. I guess the flip side of that, Kate, and the good news is there's a lot of ways to raise money. There's a lot of good ways and positive ways to raise money. There are a few negative ways, but they're mostly positive. So
we'll stick with the positive ways.
We can't just say one thing works the best. But
I think that you're right about something is that I think rejection is just as important as the acceptance piece.
Yeah.
Because I think you want partners that really want to be there with you. And so, to your point, you don't want people that aren't gonna, that when you have to sell so hard that it's like you're doing all that work, you're gonna be doing all that work by yourself the whole time. And that isn't what you want. You want it to be what you said earlier when you very first popped on, and that was, this is a partnership. From the very, very beginning, this is all about relationships, and this is about building those relationships and maintaining. those relationships. So if you have to sell and sell and sell and sell, I wouldn't want to do that all the time. It's a mutual thing
exactly.
to me on that.
I think it gets overwhelming when you're a fundraiser because you see this amount of money you need to raise and you think of all these people that you have to reach, and that can just totally bog you down. If you've got 30 to 50 people and businesses and partners on your list, and you just keep paying attention to those folks and work on relationships with those folks, that will do you far better than trying to find thousands and thousands of people to direct mail or to send an email to, or to try to do one of those quick fix type programs.
All right, that makes sense. Everyone needs to have a good strategy. It all comes down to the strategy. You have to map these things out.
Yeah, come up with your plan. The most successful campaigns I've done had a plan, and they had a plan that took quite a while to develop. A 6 to 12 month planning time where you really put your strategies in place and your timelines in place, and you really are finding where your top prospects are for those campaigns. And then once you actually execute the campaigns, there's hiccups along the way, and everybody in this business has times when they feel like they're in a slump. It's like, I just can't raise any money. No money's coming in. We all go through that. But if you have a plan, you can always go back to that plan and say, okay, this isn't working, so let's redirect and look at the other elements of the plan and keep going.
Speaking of that, it's been really interesting working with Mary. Like she said, it's been fun to get to know a little bit more about the foundation and being able to see, because they have that at the Office Depot Foundation. They have that year plan, and at first I was like, man, this is a very detailed. It's very strategic. It's very well thought through. And that's important. But what's been kind of interesting too is along the way, just some of the shifts and changes and turns and things that we've had to do just based on the results that we've gotten. So it's important to just remember you have that plan, but at the same time, things are going to happen, and you have to just kind of roll with the punches. Just like Mary talked about in the beginning, you're running a business, a nonprofit organization. While yes, it's doing good for whatever that community is that you serve, you need to run a business, and there's a bottom line, and you have to think through those things. And so I'm so impressed with Mary and her team, because it really, truly is run like a business, and it's been interesting to watch, like, the real conversations that are had with the board members, really important discussions and things that aren't necessarily the most pleasant at times, but they have to be said, they have to be done. And so I find that really interesting in this world of fundraising, which is challenging.
Yeah, you can't be a scaredy cat and do this job.
No.
And one thing I will share with you all and anyone else that's listening and watching, we talk a little bit about the Association of Fundraising Professionals, but when you become a member, you get access to this website, so you don't have to create any of these things we're talking about from scratch. They have sample fundraising plans, sample fundraising letters, sample campaign materials, policy materials, board volunteer expectations. I mean, there's tons of resources that are available through AFP, and I can't tell you how many times people will ask me, can you share your fundraising guidelines or fundraising policies with me? Well, sure I can, but we do it this way. There's a lot of other ways to do it. Go to the AFP website, you'll see all kinds of policies and things. It's a template, you fill in the blank, you customize, you find out what's right for you. So much, I think that's another scary part of development. A lot of people think they have to create everything from scratch. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't. You can copy. I tell people I subscribe to the CASE method of fundraising, copy and steal everything.
I never knew
on that.
Vicki, I didn't know that we could go on a site. I thought it was like, that's awesome. I learned all that stuff today.
The national website for AFP is afpnet.org, and the local site is afppbc.org. Both of those sites have lots of information and can help fundraisers at whatever level.
Well, I'm very proud to be a member. So is the Office Depot Foundation. So.
Thank you. We love you.
Awesome. Well, that's such a great resource. I'm very excited.
Well, if I can, I want to say this because I was one of those people that I think a lot of nonprofits, because of who our target market is, it's the small to mid-sized nonprofit. It's not the big ones. But I think sometimes they don't believe or they don't think it's important to spend money because the money is so tight. And they don't always want to put money, it always has to be accounted for. And I can relate because I too am a small nonprofit. I understand that they think because it says Office Depot I'm not, but I am. And I too can understand because at one point we had virtually Zippo dollars. I mean, it was very, very tight. But I'm going to tell you the very first thing that we did was I invested in educating myself because I knew that I could not be or do well at this job if I didn't know what I was talking about. And I couldn't very well ask people for money and ask them to invest in me or what I was doing with integrity if I didn't know what I was doing. And I would only tell people out there to join. If they don't join AFP, join something that aligns to their business model or program.
Yeah.
But AFP I found to be a great resource for us. I love their luncheons. I love their things that they go through because and then you get to meet a whole bunch of other people that have the same issues, same things, and they can give you helps and tips.
Oh, yeah, you're so right. I mean, I love the fact that I have this whole network of people, and I can tell you I rely on them so much. I'll call and say, I have this issue or I'm facing this challenge. I mean, Friday, Amy Brand and I had lunch together, and that's what we were talking about. We were sharing some stories. Well, how would you handle this? Or what do you think about this? So, it's a great network. It's a great network of other people, most of whom have faced the same excitements and challenges that you have, and it's great to be able to share those with one another.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. So, okay, so Vicki, are there any last minute parting words that you want to share to wrap it all up?
I would like to share one thing, and that is that we need new leaders in this field. We need new leaders in nonprofit management and fundraising. It's an extremely rewarding and fulfilling career, and I just want to encourage anybody who's just getting into fundraising to stick with it. Every job is not going to be great, and you're going to be so frustrated, and you're going to have so many challenges, but stick with it because we need good fundraising executives. We need good nonprofit managers for our community because our nonprofit world here is growing and growing fast, which is exciting because there's a lot of jobs here in our community for nonprofit folks, and there'll be more as this state of Florida grows bigger and bigger. So I guess that's my last piece of advice. If you're thinking about a career in fundraising, do it, try it. If you're new into the business, keep going, be bold, learn, educate yourself, Mary, as you say, because there'll be a great future for you in your career as in the fundraising or nonprofit management capacity.
Awesome. That's like a great ending of, keep going.
Right.
Right. Don't rip your head out. Be better. Be bold.
Right.
Well, Vicki, we so appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. You've shared some really great information with the ladies. And if anyone wants to connect with you or reach you, what's the best way to find you?
The best way to reach me is through my email. It's very easy. My first name, Vicki, with an I, _ last name, PUGH, @pba.edu.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everything that you shared. And, we will see you guys next time on Hanging Out at the Hive. Oh, next week we have a special live streaming that we're going to be doing, so we'll be sharing all about it. So,
Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you guys next time.
Great job. Thank you.
Yeah.